Thank you, Tyler. Hey, thanks for having me here, Southern Utah University. It's always fun to share stories, and I wanted to share some of mine. I'm not just going to talk about running my business. I'm going to talk a bit about the history of my career and what brought me to be running Worldwide Trekking and the Human Outreach Project over the years. Running a business is hard. This is Mount Everest. Running a business is probably harder than climbing Mount Everest. So it's one of those things that I would think that anybody who applies themselves to doing in any kind of career they choose, if they pick what they love to do, you'll be really good at it. So I started out in Little Cottonwood Canyon. I went to college in New Hampshire. I graduated from school. I got a job in Albany, New York. Not a big fan of Albany, New York. It was just a busy little city, and in about 6 months from the time I started, actually May I graduated, by October I was giving my notice and moved out to Utah in December. I worked the winter at Snowbird. I got a job as a restaurant cook, and by the first spring I found myself running out of money, barely could pay my rent, and I decided to move out of my apartment, and I bought a $49 Wenzel tent and spent the next 6 months living in the woods and going to work each day. So you can start from very humble beginnings and apply yourself and build yourself into whatever career that you decide to do. This is Little Cottonwood Canyon. It's the most avalanche-prone canyon in the country up there. Snowbird and Alta ski resorts. Anybody ever ski up there? Couple? Great. It's a lot of fun. I came there because I love to ski. I raced for the NCAA ski team in New Hampshire. I came out to the University of Utah, and that's what brought me there for starters. There's about 99% avalanche terrain here. Starting zone, mid-track, or run-out zone of an avalanche slide path all comes down towards our village. And I've spent the last 25 years there. Just 2 years ago, as my business grew, I took an advisory role, but I'm still very much involved on the ski patrol. A group of men and women that come together to help people on the best days of their lives, and as well the worst days of their lives. So we see it all. You see all the different components that help you help people in an outdoor, active environment where Mother Nature calls the shots. And we decide how we're going to interact with her. Our big concern is snow slides, avalanches that come down regularly. The number one thing that kills people in the mountains worldwide, and as a professional mountaineer for over 20 years, it's always in your mind, because it is something that you need to do, is keep yourself safe. So you can see, not quite sure how to use the pointer on this one, but on this period, 48 hours, we have picked up 60 inches of snow. So you don't have to be a really great avalanche forecaster to know we're going to get some snow slides with that kind of activity in the mountains. Winds are blowing 22 miles an hour out of the northeast. They're going to reload slopes. The density of the snow there is 7% to 5%, very light, easy to transport. And all of these factors go into our decision making at the resort. We use a lot of high-powered explosives. These are 2 and 4 pounds of plastic explosives to detonate. We also shoot military artillery. You can see the bullet coming out of the tube there at the end of the cloud on the right. And these are our tools to make educated decisions on what kind of activity we're going to see if everybody in this room skied out on the slope at once. It's one thing as a patrolman when we sneak around out there one at a time, tree to tree, rock band to rock band. It's another thing when we open the gate and 50 and 100 to 1,000 people go out there and ski every day. It's a massive snow slide coming down. You can see those pine trees that are easily 40 feet tall. So those give you an idea of how massive that volume is when it comes down. We have about 150 gates on the mountain that we use to decide where people can and can't go. Let's see if this goes. This is the top of our ski resort. The storm comes in, we go up the tramway. We have this storm that keeps coming and accumulating snow. We start shooting the cannons onto the mountainside. And as we do, that bullet's going to fly up to 7 miles down the canyon on the other side of the highway, where it hits one of these targets there on the horizon line, and then we either get a massive slide or not. This is a slide coming last winter down through the gully. It's going to accelerate as it hits the lower slopes, and then it's going to easily cross our highway. So you can imagine our goal at the ski resort is to open the highway to protect it from the slides. You can see there's the highway right there. If your car was coming up that highway, big danger. We shoot for the Utah Department of Transportation, and another one coming across the highway right there. And our goal is to get the ski resort road open so people can access the resort, come up, enjoy their day in the mountains. And the reason I show you some of my career at Snowbird is because what it did was help me learn how to make decisions. And it helped me learn how to make decisions that are life or death decisions for myself, for starters, for my teammates after that, and then for the general public when we open the slopes. A decision that has to be made oftentimes with a radio on your chest where somebody asks you a question, you have just moments to think about it, push your radio key, and then answer the question. And then hundreds of people hear your answer. So there's a fair amount of stress involved in that, and it helps you learn how to make them very quickly. It also gave me the opportunity to go to the International Commission for Alpine Rescue. I was invited over to Switzerland to try out for that, learn the latest high-angle rescue techniques, extrication and mountain rescue techniques. And in my time with Wasatch Backcountry Rescue, I've unfortunately been on more than 23 fatalities in the backcountry with my avalanche rescue dog. But it gave me skills. It gave me skills to negotiate the mountains. It gave me skills as a younger mountaineer to go over to Chamonix, France, and climb and ski some of the couloirs over there, to fly up to Alaska and to climb Mount McKinley or Denali in my younger career, to climb the Mont Blanc in Chamonix, France, and ski the North Face. This gave me skills. It also gave me sponsorships in the end, the North Face, Black Diamond, Suunto watches, things like that, that helped me do different things in my career at the Weisshorn in Switzerland, the Matterhorn in Switzerland. And then it gave me the opportunity to, as anybody goes through their career, you're constantly setting goals. You're constantly trying to think of what's going to be the next adventure, what's going to be the next thing I do. This is the Himalayas. This is Mount Everest here. Do a shot at the pointer here. Here we go. This is Mount Everest here. They call it Chomolungma, the mother goddess of the world. And right next to Chomolungma is the mother's locket, Amida Blam. And I just got back from Nepal on Friday. I spent 5 weeks over there. And this is Amida Blam's climbing route, comes up the front face here to Camp 2 to Camp 3. And we climbed it in alpine style. This was one of my first Himalayan big mountain leads, where I was up there trying to figure out the route, going up into the unknown. And I think in life you have so much uncertainty, and it's what we're scared of. Whether it's starting a new business or a new job or coming to school, not knowing what to expect. And these situations, of course, are with a lot of consequence. Here's our Camp 2 here. And I remember I had, done so much to prepare for this climb by going on other climbs and different expeditions. This was the night my partner took this of me coming up over the top of this next mound after we had climbed all through the dark of night, getting up towards the final pushes. And I like to think that in this photo here, this is the point where I had put myself in the position. I call it the position. It's where I was in the position to accomplish my goal. And you can see my partner and I right here, and that's what I mean by being in the position. One day away from hitting the summit. But that summit doesn't come with one day's effort. It had to start a year or more ago, climbing Denali and climbing in the Wasatch and getting all the proper gear and then saving the money and getting the permits, right? It started a year or more ago to put yourself in the position to climb this and accomplish this goal. So we have to look at where we want to be. I think the most important thing you can do to put yourself in the position is to commit to something and make a public declaration about it. If I tell you all that my goal is to do this, then I have accountability. I have to hold myself accountable to do the training, put in the work, do the homework, do the research, get ready to do it. And on this one year, of course, that last little bit is where we stand on top. But I tell all of the groups that I guide, the 16 people I just had in the Himalayas, before we get started, I tell them all the most important part of this trip is enjoy the journey. Because if you're not enjoying every day, if you're not enjoying every moment, and when you get to Everest Base Camp or when you get to the top of Amana Blam or Kilimanjaro or wherever you might go, it's 15, 20 minutes there and then you're heading back down. So you better enjoy the process day in, day out and really love it. This is us on top, Mount Everest in the background. And any mountaineer knows that this is now the most dangerous part, just like anything that we accomplish, any goal that we set. Tomorrow's another day. Well, this afternoon was another day, and we have to descend 3,000 or more feet rappelling. We're tired, we're hungry, we haven't slept very well, so there's a lot going on. We got back down, and I started to set my eyes on climbing Mount Everest. Not on a paid-for expedition and spending $100,000 as a guide. I wanted to go over and work for somebody and guide on that company and have them pay me to do the journey and take clientele over there. So in 2004, I started to work on that effort. I was on 2 different expeditions that failed I had made the public declaration. I had told people I'm going over, and then in the end, I wasn't able to do it because the expeditions fell apart. So my third attempt, and not giving up after the first one, I was kind of embarrassed. I told people I'm going to do this climb and I'm getting ready, I'm training. It didn't work out. Again, the following year, the same thing happened. By the third year, finally got on an expedition with Mountain Madness. And after 10 days of trekking in from the landing strip to Everest Base Camp, we started to set our sights on the objective to go from the base camp to Camp 1, 19,000, 22,000, 24,000, 26,000, right on up to 29,035 feet. And that takes some time. You don't climb from Camp 1, then to Camp 2. You go to 1, you come back to base camp, you go to 2, you come back to base camp. 14 times I went through the icefall up and down. I summited on my 67th day of the expedition. And I set certain goals along the way, and never on any day was I thinking I'm climbing Mount Everest and I'm doing this and motivating myself. My goals were simple: to take 10 steps, to stop for less time, to get from Camp 1 to Camp 2 safely, to make water when I got to camp and drink and hydrate. The goals in the icefall, the most dangerous portion of the climb down low, and then there's the upper mountain, was always to get through the icefall and this last set of ladders before the sun came up too much. Because when the sun comes up, the ice is a slow icefall of a waterfall, and it starts really moving and churning and changing, and big blocks fall down. So I learned in the icefall to never focus on the things that I can't control. And I think whatever you do, focus on the things you can control. There's no reason to waste energy thinking about things you can't control. What's he doing, and why do I feel angry because he's more successful than I am, or whatever it might be in our lives and our world. Focus on yourself and the things that you control and the people around you. So this is Camp 1. We make our way from Camp 1 to Camp 2. At this point, you are just acclimatizing from 19 to 22,000 feet. And literally, I spent a lot of time looking at my feet like this. So I took a photo. And I thought about this a lot. This was one of those times where I set the goals to take 10 steps or to stop for less time, or I'd count down 3, 2, 1, and I'd just start trying to walk again. It's very labor intensive. We get to Camp 2, we scout out where we're going to make our Camp 2, then we work our way back down. We go back down to Camp 1, back down to base camp. It's this long, laborsome process for months that really need to keep you focused in a very hazardous environment. You can imagine if we picked up just a few inches of snow and a light wind, that crevasse is going to be completely hidden. Okay, so we wander our route, we bend over and unclip and clip past every anchor 20 feet away, 50 feet away, dozens and dozens of time in a row when you really don't feel like bending over again and clipping through the next anchor. And you just want to walk. But safety is key, always being lined up. And you can imagine with a group of guests on this expedition, the amount of time that you spend together and the close network of situations that bring you really closely together. I'm really fortunate with all our different expeditions to see groups of complete strangers become complete friends by the end. So we had worked our way up to the Lhotse face here. Camp 3, we're trying to get to Camp 3. First 2 times we had an avalanche that made us go back to the bottom, took out our camp, and then we had bad weather that about 500 feet from Camp 3 had to turn the group back and go back down to Camp 2 again. So a series of failures in a lot of ways and going back down frustrated. We were trying to get to Camp 3 because when you get to Camp 3, you spend the night, you acclimatize, you go back to base camp and rest, and then you've gone 1 to 2 to 3 and back and forth. Your body's strong and acclimatized. After one night of rest, you go to base camp and then you rest for about a week and then you're ready to make your summit push. Okay? So we couldn't get to Camp 3. It took us 2 times. At this point, 3 members of our expedition decided that they had had enough and went home. It was very mentally laboring. We get back down to base camp, and the third attempt to go back to Camp 1 to back to Camp 2 and then on up to 3, we had great weather. Got up to Camp 3, we're getting our oxygen bottles in position. We're anchored in, our tents are all anchored into the ice. And it's pretty exciting. We're now looking down on the Western Cwm, the highest valley in the world. Camp 2 is here. Camp 1 is down here. Base camp's down below. And after one night, we make our way back down to the base. And you can imagine myself, my other guide and friend Willie, and our Sherpa team, we're all pretty excited. We've put the work in to go and make our summit attempt. We wait about a week and rest. And the wind kept blowing for more than 2 weeks. And again, really frustrating, you know, just one of those things. You've spent all this effort, time, you're over there, you want to be successful. And finally we decided, it was late in May, but around the 23rd, and I knew that if we didn't make an attempt to get up into position, to put ourselves in the position to accomplish our goal, that we weren't going to make the top. And by early June, the ice wall is so warm and the weather changes, the climbing season is over, and that's it. It's May 23rd, so we head up the ladders. We get up towards Camp 2. The weather's still very bad. You can see the strong winds coming off the ridge there. You don't go up in winds like that. It's brutally cold, minus 20, minus 40 degrees. And we get up to Camp 3 finally, and gosh, we made Camp 3, which took us 3 times in the beginning. So pretty exciting. We start to use supplemental oxygen. Supplemental oxygen is important when you're guiding because you need to make decisions for the guests and other people. You're not just making decisions for yourself. And we're tied into our camp at Camp 3. And the following day, we make our way up to Camp 4. And this is a patience game. You learn patience in the mountain. You learn that, you know, here's our camp. This guy's at least 15 minutes from camp, and this guy's at least a half hour. You learn to slow things down in your mind, to focus on simple successes. You learn that it doesn't come easy. And when we do get there, we're not done. We have to set up our tents. We have to work as a team. Somebody's got to have their foot on that fly tarp, because if it blows away, we're in real trouble. We have to start making water once we get there to drink and hydrate ourselves. We have a few hours before we're going to start to re-prepare for the summit attempt. I'm going to wash my feet so I don't have sweaty socks, which are going to freeze my feet when I get up high. There's a lot of other things going on, right? So we're thinking of all these things by 7 o'clock at night. Get up, start to prepare. By 9 o'clock at night, we set out for the top of the mountain under the darkness of night. And everybody always asks, like, why do you climb in the dark? Because we want to be up high when it's sunny and warm, right? So we take a good look at our route the night before. Obviously, we're coming up through this cliff band. By the early morning hours, we're getting up here by the balcony on the summit ridge, and then we're going to start our way up towards the south summit. This is us coming across the south summit. Willie's out there in front. This is the famous Hillary Step. And I knew, when I came across this year, we were the first team to summit on the south side. So we're all by ourselves, which was pretty exciting. I'm sure you've all seen the lines of people that can accumulate up there after the route's been put in. We come across, and I knew when to get right up in here that we were going to make it. The weather was good, the winds were down. We still have to come off, which is a lot, and you're still having to deal with a lot up there. But I can remember getting up there and thinking about my family and my friends and the times that I wanted to quit. Because there was a lot of times that I wanted to quit. That you're suffering. In the mountains, you say it's the art of suffering. So you're suffering a bit, but nonetheless, got to the top after just a short while on top, looking around at the view, and then trying to make our way well back down to 26,000 feet. Here's our camp down there. 26,000 feet, you're still in the death zone for the second night in a row. Really have to mentally visualize things, visualize situations, and focus on the moment in front of you. And I like to think about, you focus on the moment in front of you and you nail it. And then you focus on the next one and you nail that. One step at a time, slowly, slowly. So this is us when we get back down to Camp 2. The following day, we're heading back out through the big icefall glaciers. Our packs are really big because we're trying to get all the stuff off the mountain so we don't have to go back up there again. And it was, in the end, with patience, a successful journey. The following year, I decided that I'd go over and climb Mount Cho-Oyu. It's the 6th highest mountain in the world, probably. Anybody ever hear of Cho-Oyu? That's how it goes, right? You know the first and the second and things like that. But as you go down the line, it's an 8,000 meter peak. It's 27,000 feet. Not well known, but for surely an amazing climb. The group that I was guiding, and an extremely high avalanche hazard. See a big avalanche ripped out right up here. And after a while, I realized that this was just not going to happen safely. And the most important thing is to come home in the end. So Cho-Oyu didn't happen that year. And that happens a lot over the course of the different mountain climbs. They don't all happen. But we have a saying that the mountain's not going anywhere. Okay, so we can go back to the mountain, we can try again. In failure, I think it's really important to think of failures as a learning opportunity and a chance to try again, right? Because not just over unless you make the ultimate failure in the mountains and don't go home. This is Indonesia, Irian Jaya, Bali, Denpasar, Bali. We flew in, took a small plane to a landing strip through a very remote jungle in the western area of Indonesia, and there we're greeted by all these local people. These guys are extremely primitive. No shoes, war paint on. They decide who's going to be the guys that carry your loads for 7 days through the jungle. We were going over primitive bridges and dropping trees to get through these areas, and finally make it to base camp. We do some training and then make our summit push. This is called the Tyrolean Traverse, where we have to span the 2 pinnacles of the mountain with a rope and go across on that rope line, and finally made our way to the top. It was a real adventure. There was times on the trek in that we were in knee-deep mud for more than 3 hours. So just insanely difficult, you know, humid and raining a lot. We get back down to the base camp. You can see the base camp on this one. Not another climber. We hadn't seen another climbing team since we were on our first flight into the, before the jungle there. Had an unfortunate accident. Our porters hide in this cave. A big flake of rock fell off and hit one of the porters in the head, young guy, probably around 14 years old. In the nighttime, the porter team came up when we were back at base camp after our summit climb, screaming and yelling and saying that they wanted, one of us dies, one of you dies. And it was a really difficult situation. You know, you don't know the language. This guy's got a machete. He's threatening. Runs back down. Eventually I went back down and we did a rescue of the guy into the Freeport gold mine. It's the largest open pit gold mine in the world. And when we did, the security force came over with an ambulance. They took him away. We went back up to base camp. Of course, we were nervous about going back through the jungle with these guys that were threatening our lives, as well as showing up in the village with all these primitive people when we got there without one of the porters with us. And I guess the long story short is we spent 10 days locked in that storage container when the security force came, when we went back down to ask for help. And it was an incredible time with a group of people. There's the 10 of us there. And I learned on this, they had asked me, one of the gentlemen on the trip after I went down and did the rescue of the young guy into the Freeport gold mine, they had asked me if they had voted me as the leader to make the decisions for the group. I was not. I was privately guiding one client on this trip, not the whole group. And gave me a lot of pressure, but what I realized was in leadership, and you all be leaders in your career at some level, in leadership, always think about it as not delegating orders and not telling people what to do. It's about bringing people together. When you can bring a team of people together, and you have a team, and as a leader, you're going to help, everybody's going to help accomplish the goal. So it's about bringing people together, not telling people what to do or giving them orders. I had started my business, Worldwide Trekking, and when I started Worldwide Trekking, I decided that I would go for adventure travel, treks, safaris, sailing trips, things like that, that were going to give people an opportunity to more or less do adventures to a lot more people than just hardcore mountaineers type climbs. Of course, we go to places like Mount Elbrus, Russia, and get high above the clouds, but these are very moderate treks for people with crampons and ice axe. But the idea is to take this couple from Logan, Utah, and see them accomplish this amazing goal, climbing to the top of Mount Elbrus in Russia, right? One of the 7 summits, highest point in Europe. Just got back from Kathmandu, Nepal, an amazing place. I've been there, going there for more than 20 years. And on this one, we trek people up the Khumbu Valley and, you know, village to village through the Himalayas to Mount Everest Base Camp. And, you know, there's a big process of getting customers that want to buy your product because they don't need it. Their car's not broken down, or they don't have a flat tire. They need a tire replaced, right? And I tell this to the people in the office, my team in the office, you know, it's not like something doesn't work in their life and they need it fixed. This is something that is a nice to do, or maybe they've dreamed of doing, but it's not a necessity in their lives. So we have to make sure that they feel the desire to come from Houston, Texas, sign up for the trip, go through the whole process, training for over a year, putting it all together till they fly into Kathmandu and start into Sagarmatha National Park, start over the suspension bridges. And then you have, you know, Chicago, Illinois, New Jersey, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Arizona, people from all over the country coming together as strangers the first day, a little bit uncertain of each other. And by the end, they're great friends. And I'm really lucky to see this again and again. We have to organize, you know, my work environment is quite different with transportation. You know, this is luggage being transported up the valley. In Nepal last week, I have 15 yaks along with our team, you know, and yak drivers and porters and Sherpa guys passing through amazing monasteries. and tell them tales about Ama de Blam and the places that I've had the fortune to go to on our way to Mount Everest Base Camp. But this group of guys from Tennessee coming together to accomplish this goal is an amazing thing in their life. And it's what we sell at Worldwide Trekking. We sell experiences, we sell challenges, and we sell views like this that you personally see yourself. This is from Kalapatar, base camp's down in here. And my whole group of 16 people stood there last week and took in this view, or 2 weeks ago, because it takes about a week to trek out. One of our other popular climbs is over here in East Africa, Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest freestanding mountain in the world. It is, it's a great 7-day climb, so it's pretty achievable for a lot of people. Anybody in this room that I see before me could climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And it's amazing because you go through 5 different eco changes along the way, up over lava flows. We set a camp each night. We move our camp each night. 16 people on Kilimanjaro. I'll have 80 staff members, local staff members working. So there's language issues and there's a lot of other issues, but it's taken a long time to have my operations managers and my lead guides. We have toilet attendants, cooks, waiters, porters, all the gears going up onto the mountain. And our guests sign on for this experience knowing that you're logistically going to have your act together and make sure that they can enjoy themselves, challenge themselves, and safely do this with their family, mom, dad, the kids, you know, different group of people. And again, seeing these people from all over the country. I've had plenty of people come climb Kilimanjaro that have never slept in a tent before. Okay, so you definitely have some orientation. And as a guide, you can't assume like, oh, they know. They know what to do when, you know, they know to put the headlamp in the pocket before it gets dark. You know, they know to take off the wet clothing so they don't freeze and get hypothermic when the sun goes down. You got to tell them, and you got to share the information. And you have to do it in a way that doesn't sound like you're being a nag all the time, right? You have to do it in a way that it's a teamwork together. Again, we leave in the darkness of night and make our way up to the top. I'd say the majority of the people that have climbed Kilimanjaro with me, I've done it more than 55 times, 5 times this summer, told me it's the hardest thing they've ever done. And I love that because it's successful people that I'm sure do a lot of really hard things in their life, but physically and mentally challenging. But the reward is I've only had 2 people ever that have not made the top. So your safety and patience with your guests, I always refer to our clientele as guests, and I make sure that my team in the office and my local guys know they're like a guest in our home. Don't make them feel like a client. Who wants to feel like a client? Not a very nice word. I'd prefer to be a guest. I'd prefer to teach and treat our guests like guests in my home. So here's different folks that have made the top. Lots of fun and happy people. It's really a good challenge for people. It's really an amazing thing to see the sun come up. We summit around 6:37 in the morning. The sun's coming up, and people are just amazed by it. I've got a little audio here. I didn't know if that was working. Is there a volume that I can turn up here? It didn't work on the first video. We'll see if that goes. Okay, hopefully it won't blow your eardrums out. This is our 10-year video that we just made. a lot more video now, and I think that as I started as a business owner to look into advancements in SEO on Google with all of our competition, I thought that the best thing that I could do was start a series called Trek Tips. We've got more than 77 videos on Kilimanjaro and videos on Safari. And basically what I do is share in our studio in the office every answer to every question I can think of that people ask. I send them to our guests so they know the best time of year, the best route, the gear list, the vaccinations that they need, all of the information that they need to do our climb. And for us, as I built the business, you constantly got to think about what you can do differently and what you can do to make sure that you're staying at the cutting edge of your field. So nobody was doing that. For me, I have a true love for exploration, whether it's Machu Picchu. We do a lot of trips here. I sail people all over the world, the Caribbean, Croatia, Greece, Turkey, and the Mediterranean, to see the sun come up over Kilimanjaro time and time again. It never gets boring. I still love to do the alpine climbing and see amazing sunsets and great views. But what I've learned is in any business is it's really all about the people. It's about the people. It's about your guests, right? It's about the people that you help, for us, challenge themselves greatly. And I can't tell you how many views of this and this and this and this, it never gets old. When people put their hand in the air and they're feeling so proud of their accomplishments, you know, it's truly what I felt I was put on this earth to do. Okay, and you got to find that in your life. And for me, when I am guiding different people and seeing them, some having real hard challenges, I'm going to walk over to them and give them some encouragement. No, you're doing fine. Take a rest. He was actually just napping after lunch. It wasn't like he was totally sacked out, but nonetheless, it's really neat to, as a mountaineer. For a long time, my goal setting was about me accomplishing goals and climbing mountains. But when you take that and you say it's about you climbing the mountain, I know I can climb Kilimanjaro. But the challenge for me is to get 16 people to the top and down safely. I accomplished my goal and they all accomplished their goal. So my goal is to get each one up and down safely, right? So it's a joint effort, it's a teamwork effort. And the other big part of the business, part of why I started Worldwide Trekking, was because of the need and desire, having seen so much as I traveled across the world, so many people that struggled every day with just everyday life, right? So I thought, if I'm going to start this business, Worldwide Trekking, and I'm going to take mostly Americans, we have clientele from all over the world, come and I'm going to take them to Tanzania, Africa. I'm going to take them to Kathmandu, to Nepal, or the remote areas of Peru, or elsewhere. Then we should have a social obligation to give back, and give back in the communities that serve us so well. And I started the Human Outreach Project. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. The very first year, I had a guy that was helping me start my business, and we're getting the LLC, and I'm wanting to do the nonprofit, and he's like, "You can do that later. Just do that later." And I was just like, this is the catalyst of why I want to start this business, is because I'm not getting this guiding for other agencies. This was very important to me. So find out what's very important to you, and that'll help you in your business. So I didn't keep working with him for very long. Part of the reason, in 2005, my good friend and climbing partner Ampusang Sherpa was killed. And that year I came off the mountain, I went back and started my business in 2006-07. And I knew his 3 kids were in an orphanage in Kathmandu, Nepal. My very first trip was a trek to Mount Everest Base Camp with a group of 10 people. And I went about a week early, and my goal was to find the kids in Kathmandu. Their aunt came, met me. We were able to go to where the orphanage was, and this was the first day I met the 3, Maya, Lakba, and Dawa, my buddy's children. And went and did that, and it was awkward at first. I had never met them before. They were super shy Nepalese kids, wouldn't talk, very respectful. Took them to lunch. I had raised about $300 at that point for the nonprofit. And I took them to lunch. I took them out. We went shopping, bought socks and underwear and some things like that. And then I took them back to the orphanage. And there was about 85 kids waiting for us to return. And I felt about this big. Felt horrible. And just didn't think of that part of it. I've had a lot of those, especially with the nonprofit, where I didn't, you realize you're giving these supplies away and it's corrupt and you got to revisit. I just spent the last 5 days of my time in Nepal flying around in a helicopter to the different remote regions to visit our sites so I could see with my own eyes what are they doing with the solar panels. The computers are all still here. They're working properly. Everything looks good. And I have that obligation because it's a nonprofit where people donate their money to what we're doing. So with the nonprofit, I always think, what am I doing with other people's money? Okay, it's really important to me. So Maya and Lakwan Dawa, first day. The following year, I tried to make good. I found out what they needed at the orphanage, and I brought over 5 bags of sporting goods and supplies like that, and we've done that effort there. Lots of school supplies. This is last year. Lakwa's now a junior in college, goes to Northampton University in Kathmandu, and Maya's starting her freshman year of college. Dawa's in 9th grade. And I've seen them grow up over the years. And one of the things that is important, I think, is that don't be afraid to start something, because if it was now and I never made that awkward introduction way back then in the beginning, I would never be able to enjoy what I just enjoyed with them last week when they were coming around to the different sites with me, because over the years now, we very much have a great relationship. We also do stuff locally, and when I started my business, the first 4 years, I lived in employee housing at Snowbird. I started my business in employee housing. And for the first 4 years, it was just me writing itineraries, making reservations, booking flights, taking in client agreements, doing all this stuff to get guests signed up. And then I went from there to getting a home office and a bedroom that was converted into an office for about a year. And then about 5 years ago, I leased an office space. Now I have 10 people full-time in that office space. So it's grown a lot really quickly, and I had to learn how to manage that. So when we grew into the office, I thought that it was really important for us to not just do something in Nepal and Tanzania, Africa, and Peru, but also here locally. This is at Thanksgiving time where we deliver boxes of food supplies to veterans that struggle with post-combat adjustment issues. We get information from the Veterans Administration that reaches out to them, and they're able to box up about 5 or so boxes of food supplies for Thanksgiving time. They get a gift card to Walmart so they can do some shopping, and then they get a second food delivery at the week of Christmas. This year I was really excited. We started a program called Hop Outdoors. That's also another local program. And this brings kids from high crime and drug areas of Salt Lake City through the Boys and Girls Clubs. We have sign-ups and registration forms there. There were some obstacles. Like in the beginning, it was hard for them just to get the permission trip signed. And I had to be the guy saying like, hey, no slip, no trip. You got to get this signed. I can't take you up into the mountains without a liability sign from your parents, right? So, but then we ran Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday every week, 14 kids at a time, take them to Snowbird. They donated a tram ride. U2L Food Services donated a picnic lunch, and North Face donated backpacks and Cliff Bar's another sponsor. They donated Cliff Bar products. And these kids get to see and learn what it's like to go up. Hey, I live in Salt Lake City, 20 minutes away. There's the mountains right there. I can go up and go for a hike. So we're trying to teach these kids that life expands outside of their block or their 5 blocks that surround their house in a bad area of town. Down in Peru, we spend a lot of time taking groups, had 2 groups in Peru this summer, one to Machu Picchu, one on the Santa Cruz trek. This is the lost city of the Incas. And there in Pashpa Village, we've provided their Christmas for 450 people for the last 5 years. It's called the Chocolata ceremony. And we give them all a gift for the little boys and girls, and they have chocolate. It's their tradition. And it's really important when you start to interact with other cultures. Their culture and their traditions, their customs, they're not the same as ours. So you have to ask them, like, what do you need? What do you do at Christmas time? And this summer was really awesome because we expanded that yearly Christmas program to putting in 2 computer centers with Goal Zero Solar, Dell computers in 2 very remote areas of Peru, where a kid will go to school through 7th grade, and when they go on through 8th grade, and then they're going to go 9th grade into the high school years, they've probably never seen a computer in their life. Now they're going to go to Lima, Peru, or they're going to go to Huaraz, Peru, or somewhere, and all of a sudden see a computer for the first time. So we were able to do this by some sponsorships, and then we built the building and did the effort to put in the computer systems. In Nepal, last couple years, we've done a lot of things over there. I've been going there for a long time. This was after the avalanche killed 16 Sherpas in the ice fall, and we were able to raise $30,000 and give them about $1,500 apiece to their families the following year, which is quite a lot of money for their families to be able to help in Nepal. During the earthquakes that rocked Nepal just a couple years ago, flew over the week after, the 3 days after the first earthquake, and spent 3 weeks there on the ground. Saw things that were, even doing emergency medicine at Snowbird for 25 years, it was horrible. And spent 3 weeks there with 4 trauma surgeons that came from Salt Lake City with me, and another one of my lead guides. And in the end, we started a program where we put up toilet tents in all of the areas around the villages and people's homes. So they would have a place to go to the bathroom and not get sick when the monsoon came and started raining and that kind of thing. So seeing the need, spending 3 weeks, deciding in the end what is going to be the most appropriate thing we can do. Returned the following year. This is Juving School, and we did a solar installation and 10 laptops. I was here last week. The 10 laptops are working great. We pay for their Wi-Fi, and we help with the tuition for all the kids in this school. As well, we're going to be, or we did hire 4 teachers, and we're going to be hiring them again, 4 teachers that are qualified to teach computers. It's not about what you bring, but they have to know how to use what you bring, right? If I bring 10 laptops and nobody knows how to use a laptop, doesn't really do much good. So we hired 4 teachers, 2 teach English, 2 teach computers and social studies, and that program will go on. We had 350 desks built for the kids in the school. They all had school and classrooms, and they had no desks in the school. So some basic, simple stuff. This is their little ceremony they did when we arrived. And last week I was really excited. About a year ago I committed to building a medical clinic in Manang, Nepal. And flew in, and it was just really cool to see the building in completion, and the fact that so many villagers, local people, along with trekkers and mountaineers that enter this region are going to benefit from the 3 doctors that spend the high season here, and the facility that they'll be able to go to when they're sick or hurt or a lot of things. So this is our inauguration of the building last week. Our largest project is in Tanzania, Africa. Out of frustration, I bought 4 acres of land, and this was my second or third year in business, 2009. And gosh, I was talk about being nervous. You know, I walked out on that land, it was a dirt field, and I was just like, what are you thinking? Like, I barely had started my business, right? So, really, over the years, it's grown a ton, and now we have 13 kids with a full staff. You see a homeless child that we brought in, really confused and upset, start to grow and feel comfortable, and you know, become a beautiful child. And there's a story like this for every one of our kids. It's really an amazing program. and seeing them make the honor roll and taking them on safaris and buying them bicycles and giving a kid that was living in the streets a new life and a chance has been the best accomplishment of my life. It far exceeds climbing Mount Everest, I'll tell you that. Okay, so there's a lot of other things that you can do in the world. I have a short video here of a new program that we started.
We're here at the Monkey Community Primary School in Tanzania, Africa, and about a month or so ago we did come and visit the school and we talked to the headmaster for a while, talking about the struggles that they have here with their school system. You know, the thing that he came up with was their hardest struggle was the fact that they did have to do a lunch program during the day for the kids. So there's about 700 students here, kids moving as far as 7 kilometers away, walk to school, 7 classrooms, you know, from 1 through 7, and all these children would come for the day and not have a lunch program for them to have lunch during the day. So what the Human Outreach Project did was we decided that we wanted to help support that program, and we started by school storage area where we could install some large kettles with fire stoves to cook mostly maize, rice, beans, things like that for them for their lunchtime meal. And then once those were installed, we bought 6 months worth of food stored, and we'll do that continuously throughout the year. We'll buy the food during the lower part of the cost for the high season of sales for maize or rice and beans for the kids each day. Along with that, we bought plates and utensils and hired some cooks to help prepare the meal each day. And now this last week, we just started the program where these kids will have a noontime meal each day and provide lunch for them. Already the program has been going for about 1 week, and the teachers and the headmaster here have said they've already seen an increase of students coming to school, and they would expect that to increase in the future. We're really proud of the program. We'll be serving over 700 kids a day, every day, throughout the school year, and for years to follow. So, really exciting program. I think some of the things that we've already seen that we'll probably end up doing is help them with their facilities and serving to make it a little more efficient so the kids can come, get their food, and then go play for the rest of their lunchtime hour and then get back to class afterwards. And some of the things that we're going to do is help install some preparation area for the food, some serving areas so each class can be served at the same time, and then of course some cleanup area so they can clean their plates and clean up after the lunchtime meal. So it's a really new program for the Human Outreach Project. We're really excited to have it go, and the most important thing for us obviously is impacting the lives of these students so they can have their lunchtime meal, so they can be better educated, so they can focus more on their school and their work during the day. And we'll see how this program goes, but it's an exciting new program, and I like to thank all the donors at the Human Outreach Project, because without the donors, this type of effort would not be possible.
I want to thank you guys for your time today. For me, I would say, if I look back at my life and I thought about those 6 months,
And I would never think that I would be doing a lot of these things that I've done over my career. My advice to you would be to visualize your success. Think about where you want to go and what you want to achieve, and you'll figure out how to get there. But you got to know where you want to be if you're going to try to get there, and dream big. Okay? Thank you guys very much.